Hello, I'm Dr. Kenneth Goldberg, and I'm the author of The Homework Trap: How to Save the Sanity of Parents, Students, and Teachers. Uh, on Wednesday, the Race to Nowhere team will be presenting a petition to the National PTA for discussion before their actual convention begins. I have spoken before about my strong support for this petition. I've also written recently on my blog that there are some differences in my position and what shows on this petition, and I've promised that I would explain in more detail what those differences are. I plan to do that in this video, and it will probably be a longer video than I typically have produced. The the petition is very good, and it sets up guidelines that are healthy in terms of the practice of homework, and hopefully it will cause PTAs around the country to begin to recognize that its roles are not just ones of parents helping out teachers and doing auxiliary types of functions, but that PTAs really have a function in terms of representing parents in terms of their needs, interests, and concerns. So I strongly support the petition both on its content and on the impact it may have on PTAs. I do think that in some ways it's sad that this petition has to come to be, because in ways the content of the petition really belongs less to PTAs and more to teachers, and in some ways not so much to teachers as individual professionals, but to teachers. Teachers, actually, teacher educators. It's a petition that ought to be geared towards schools of education. I don't fault teachers in terms of homework policy. If I fault anyone, it's more schools of education for the failure to take this practice, which is so widespread and so important in a child's education and life, and to fail to teach it seriously as an educational technique. I've looked at course catalogs for schools of education, and I'm yet to find the course called homework. And I think that given the weight and importance it has, it is very important for teachers to be studying this. Much of the content of this petition follows from the research that has been available through the work of many of my colleagues. And this research does not get to teachers in any way other than it gets to parents through the popular press. And I think it's incumbent on schools of education to be teaching homework research, policy, and practice, research theory and practice. It's important to teach that so the teachers are making decisions based on the knowledge of the field, not based on just what has been, could almost be folklore, what one teacher learns from the next one, starting with the student teaching. But that said, I'd also like to highlight some of the differences between what is in the petition and my own model. I think that the petition sets good guidelines, but we're still going to be in a position where individual teachers are going to be making individual decisions, and that if your child has a normal school experience, your child will have 30 to 40 primary teachers in the course of a public school education, and those individuals will differ. They will follow such policies and guidelines in different ways, and they will have extreme influence on your child's life. So for me, I think that it's important to also set clear containers and parameters under which, whether or not teachers follow these philosophies, whether or not they accept these best practices, that they are still working within a container and there are limits to what they have an authority to do, which doesn't mean they can't assign homework, but I think there need to be limits to authority. Recently, the Los Angeles Unified School District made news on a national basis with its efforts to limit the weighting of homework to 10% of the grade. I supported that policy strongly because if you limit the weight to 10% of the grade, then you diminish the implications of homework, the impact of homework. That policy led to a lot of debate, a lot of controversy, and to the best of my knowledge, never went into effect. More quietly and recently, the Gloversville, New York School District, which is certainly not as large as Los Angeles, has adopted a policy in which homework is limited to 10% of the grade, and further, there's a 50 as a floor to the negative grade that a child can get. This combination of a floor to the negative homework grade and the practice of limiting its weighting to 10% will have a tremendous impact in diminishing the excessive negative effects homework can have. Right now, a 0 is 2.5 times has 2.5 times greater negative weight than a 60, which is generally a failing grade, and it can be weighted depending on teacher discretion up to 25% of the grade, maybe more, but 25% is usually the highest I've seen. So you take this practice, which is not well supported by research, which presumably should be take less time than a full school day does, and you give it this excessive weighting with the potentially of extremely low grades for not getting it done, and a child effectively can be in a position of failing if that child is persistently homework non-compliant, despite the fact that the child is still learning. And that sheer fact that this bright child can fail is enough to send parents into a frenzy. They feel helpless and they become taskmasters over their own children, distorting the natural relationship that should exist between a parent and a child. And that is the crux of the problem. In my model, I recommend 3 basic steps. The first one is time-bound homework, which any parent can do on their own, with or without the school's agreement. I highlight the fact that the second step is reduced penalties. Policies like the one that Los Angeles Unified School District was considering and that Gloversville, New York School District has actually put into action have the impact of those penalty reductions. Now, when I write about these things, I'm talking about the homework trapped child, not education in general, so I talk about incorporating these types of modifications into a 504 plan. But it is wisdom would tell you that the school districts would do what Gloversville, New York has done. And then the third component I recommend is the parents be in charge of the home. That final decision making about homework be vested in the parent, even if parents are normally going to support teachers, that parents still have the final say for the individual child in that individual home. Now, here is what I consider one of the advantages of my policy, even though I fully support the petition and the idea of PTAs accepting that policy. And that is that if you put a boundary on the time, and if you create reductions in the penalties, and if you recognize that in the end the child cannot fail, overriding the parent's final decision of what happens at home, what that does is it creates a container for homework that teachers can then work with. I started this video clip talking about how schools of education are not teaching homework policy. Part of the problem is that we're in a situation where parents are trying to teach teachers about homework when professors of education are the ones who should be teaching teachers about homework. I know of a friend of mine who talked about the struggles he had with his son, and he brought in massive data. He would bring in the writings of Alfie Kohn and Sarah Bennett and Etta Kralvik. He'd bring in all these good writings to show to the teacher as if he is the educator in a topic where such education should have occurred, not at his efforts, but should have occurred within those methods by which teachers learn to teach. So what happens is the petition focuses on changes that should occur. My model focuses on the containers, the structure within which teachers work. It's my firm belief that by focusing on the containers, what that will do is it will cause teachers to make wiser decisions and teacher educators to have to teach teachers to make wiser decisions about what to do with the limited amount of time one has with homework. Right now, a child can be given a volume of homework and a teacher can think, oh, here's a good idea, let's do it. And the good idea may be a good idea. For all I know, it might be a nice little assignment that could be fun, that could be educational, could be whatever. But the fact is, if it can be given without consideration of where it fits within a finite amount of assignments that can be given, it becomes an add-on. It's very much like the problem we have with credit cards today, which is people no longer buy money with the dollars that are in their wallet. They buy money with the plastic that's within their wallet. So when they make a payment, a purchase decision, even if they don't really have the money, they can always buy something more. And that's part of the problem with teaching and homework, is that you can always make an additional assignment because you don't have an hour to work with. You can just give homework. And once you put the containers around the assignments, then this will create an environment in which teachers will make wise homework decisions and possibly adopt these recommendations that are in the petition, just as once you have a finite amount of money, you're more likely to make wise decisions about how to use it. So I hope that clarifies some of the differences between my position and what is in the petition. And please understand that those differences do not in any way diminish my full support of this petition. Thank you.